Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Community for Everyone podcast. My name is Szabella Pasztor, and I'm your candidate for state senator of the 1st Legislative District. This podcast is something I'm very excited about. It happens every Monday, and it's just a chance for us to talk about the community, us to talk about how we can make our community better, how we can take meaningful steps to bring about that change that we're looking for in our society. This is a place to join the conversation and learn more about the solutions that we ought to be taking. So, first, I just want to start with a story. And this story is something that's very personal to me. In case you don't know, I had worked at a nonprofit. I've been working there for the last 4 years at Farmer Frog. And we've been doing just a whole bunch of food, sending it out during COVID-19 when we saw a big increase in food insecurity. We saw people all over from all different parts of life just come to us and just really ask for that help that they needed because they were just facing really hard times. And so I want to give you just some perspective on some of the things that we saw and really let you know too that it's actually worse than this. So just know that these are stories of what it was, and right now it's even harder. There was a time when a lady had come up to one of our distribution sites. We had a pop-up where we bring out food, we set up right on the parking lot, and we start handing it out. And this lady, she had told us just what's going on in her life and how she's making it. And what she told us is that she, for the last 2 months, was eating cat food. That's how she made it. That's how she's been making it. And this is the very first time. This was in the later part of 2020. This was the very first time that she was able to get real food. And she was just in tears. And there was another moment. Of course, if you remember COVID-19, when it hit, it was like the Wild Wild West days. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know if you touch the metal, it's going to get to you. Or if you don't touch the metal, we had no idea. And we had all sorts of community members locked up during the economy shutdown and just hiding, doing their best to really just stay safe. So there's a senior center that heard about us giving food out, and they sent their youngest person to get food because everybody else was, hiding in their rooms. Their youngest person was in their late 90s, and that person had driven with the van, and he came to our, this was at our pickup site in Woodinville at the time, and he jumped out. He looked at all the food that was there, and he collapsed right then and there. He just collapsed. He just couldn't believe it. He just couldn't believe it. So what this highlights is just how desperate people are right now when it comes to getting their food. I'm sure all of us, when we're shopping at the grocery store and we're just seeing the dollar signs go up and we're seeing the grocery bags go down, we're wondering, how are we going to do it? How are we going to make it with just the little bags that we have? How are you going to feed your kids? How are you going to feed yourself for the next week? We're at a time when food is getting very expensive because while, yes, inflation is slowing down, inflation has gotten worse in the sense that we had inflation in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and we're starting to see it again in 2024. And so when you put it all together, you have about 20% inflation in total. So that's a problem. Part of the other problem is that when we're really looking at just how to solve this across the board, government agency funding is limited. Washington State Department of Agriculture had a budget cut in 2023 where their food programs, their agriculture department, was cut by 67%. That's a problem. On top of that, the food programs that are out there, they're usually focused on providing temporary solutions, not long-term. So what do I mean by that? Well, when it comes to food, our government solves it in a number of ways. Essentially, you have what's called the Temporary Emergency Food Assistance Program. And this program, it's supported by the federal government. Money comes from the United States Department of Agriculture. It goes down, and then you to the Washington State Department of Agriculture. And then you also get funding that comes from our state legislature to support Washington State Department of Agriculture's budget. And what we see that while these temporary emergency food assistance programs are impactful, they are not providing long-term solutions. So what does a long-term solution look like when it comes to food? Well, in case you don't know, I have dogs, and you're going to hear them bark all the time in this podcast. They're my family, they're my friends, and so they're just part of it. But in case you don't know, when it comes to food, that Washington State is one of the leading growers in the nation. We have probably I think we're number 5 in terms of potato growers. And we're in the top 10 when it comes to things like wheat, lentil. In fact, 60% of Egypt's wheat comes from Washington State. This was, I believe, a really jarring statistic I learned in 2014 when I was at the Washington State University, where I graduated with my bachelor's degree. And while we are big growers in Washington State, one of the challenges we have is that a lot of the food that we grow goes outside of the state. It goes to California, it goes to Florida, it goes to Wisconsin. In fact, the potatoes that we grow are one of the major supply chains for McDonald's for their French fries. So one obvious solution is to support our farmers so that the food can get to us. And farmers are they're pretty chill. What they're looking at is ultimately their bottom line. How can they get their bottom line supported so that they can get the product out and still keep growing? So in terms of solutions, when it comes to food, there are going to be times, and we are in one of those times, where people are really struggling. But we need to be investing into our farmers. We need to be investing into our community to establish growing spaces so that we can be growing more food. And we need to be making land more accessible for farmers in Western Washington. And we need to ease up on some of the restrictions on Eastern Washington. So thank you again for joining me today. We're going to be back next Monday at the same time, same place. If you want more information about me, about the campaign, feel free to just follow me on www.sabella.com, where you're going to see, these podcasts, you're going to see my policies, you're going to see all of it. And then also go to our social media platforms at Vote for Sabella. That's our handle on 7 different platforms. So thank you again for joining me on this important discussion around food. Take care and have a wonderful day.